they have changed their idea and they have also started preaching, or they have started believing in some other preachings like Brahmananda or the Mukti, freedom. Okay, so it's not just following Vedas or leading life in accordance with Vedas. They also said that they also believe that it is Brahmananda which will also ultimately lead to freedom, right? So this is what is Purva Mimamsa. Then comes Uttara Mimamsa. It is also known as Vedanta. But don't think that Vedanta is actually propounded by Adi Shankara or somebody else. Ivana, money Ivana. So Vedanta is yeah. Vedanta literally means the end part of Vedas. Okay. So if you remember, I told you that Vedas comprise of four parts. Each four parts. Each Veda comprises of four parts. What are they? Do you remember? Oh, I should not ask you questions.
Dvaita,
Okay.
Advaita.
No, no, no. I said each Veda can be divided into four parts or comprised of four parts. Even I have given you a question in first internal examination, and many of you wrote the answer. Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad.
Samaveda.
These are the, no, no, no. Students, that means all of you wrote the exam, but you don't remember. Either it is copying or you have seen the notes, which is not good. Okay, leave it. Each Veda can be divided into four parts. First one is Samhita, wherein you will find hymns. Second one is Brahmana. Third one is Aranyaka. Fourth one is Upanishad. Okay, so how they have got these names, I have explained it in, while explaining the Vedic literature. Right? It's not the point of discussion. The point is the last part of Vedas are known as Vedanta. They are Upanishads. So the whatever the information is given in Vedas, the same thing is explained in different way in Upanishads. And people, scholarly persons like Adi Shankara, Ramanuja, Sayanacharya, they have read Vedas and they have also understood the gist, and they have also read the Upanishads and they have understood the message, and they have come up with their explanatory notes, which is known as Bhashya, interpretation, okay, or commentaries you can say. So the Bhashyas were based purely on Upanishads, or the information that is there in Vedas and Upanishads. Right? So, basing on the information that is there in Upanishads and Vedas, people have come up with different ideas, or as I said, different explanations. So Adi Shankara said that he is the first person to explain. He explained that the God or the Brahman, whom we call Supreme Soul in English, is not very different from the individual soul. That means we human beings are believed, not only human beings, but all other life forms are believed to have the soul. This the soul, excuse me, the soul is also part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. But because of Maya, we don't understand that these individual souls too have all the qualities of Supreme Soul. The moment you understand the truth that you are not very different from the Supreme Soul, you too have the qualities of Supreme Soul, or you too are part and parcel of Supreme Soul, the very moment you will also become part and parcel of Supreme Soul. That means you will start enjoying the eternal bliss, or it is believed that you attain the Kaivalya or Moksha. That means you have already broken the circle of life and death. You need not take birth again to reap the fruits of your past deeds, good or bad. Right? That is what is Advaita is. Advaita says that Advaita is actually a Sanskrit word which says Advaita. It is a combination of two words, Advaita. A is negation in Sanskrit. Dvaita means two. In simple Sanskrit, it is said that Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That means the Ekam Sat, The truth is only one. Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Vipra doesn't mean that it is Brahmins. Or else I can say Brahmins. But who are Brahmins? It's not a caste. It is the intellectual people, the knowledgeers who have got the knowledge. They are known as Brahmins. So the Brahmins are the Vipras, those who have knowledge. They explain it in different ways. For example, the same mathematical concept or a concept in physics or in chemistry can be explained by different persons in different ways. But what are they explaining? They explaining the same concept, but they are giving different examples. Their way of explanation is different. Have you seen it? Yes, I have seen it many times. You might have experienced it. The same problem will be explained in different ways by different persons. But problem is same, solution is same, answer is same. But explaining it can be done in different ways. In the same way, the ultimate reality or truth is same, Ekam Sat, Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. In the same way, whatever is said in Vedas, the same thing is explained in Upanishads but in a different way. And whatever is explained in both Vedas and Upanishads, again it is explained in different ways by different persons. So Adi Shankara explained it and his explanations got the name Advaita. Meaning it's not two, it is only one. What is not two? The soul, individual soul and supreme soul, they are not two. They are not different. They are one and the same. That's what is the gist of Advaita. Then after him, Ramanuja, he has come up with a different idea, Vishishta Advaita. He's saying Advaita, he's accepting Advaita, but he's saying Vishishta Advaita. That means the Supreme Soul and Soul are not very different, but still Supreme Soul is Supreme. It has got a prefix, Supreme. So it has got some more qualities than the individual soul. That's what he's saying. Then we have other ideologies, other schools of thought, other understandings like Dvaita, Dvaita, Shuddha Dvaita. Now you remember Advaita starting, then second one is Vishishta Dvaita, then Dvaita, then Dvaita, then Shuddha Dvaita, like this, different Achintya Veda. Okay, so different people have come up with different ideas, different schools of thought. So the ultimate thing is Vedanta says that the soul and supreme soul are one and the same, or they have same qualities. But this individual soul doesn't realize that it is one and the same. The moment it realizes, it becomes one with the supreme soul. Sometimes it is said that even though we are also part and parcel of supreme soul, but we don't have all the qualities of supreme soul. We have some, or the some are, and say the supreme soul has got some or the other more qualities, and whereas we lack those few qualities. That's why we are simple souls, and that is supreme soul. Like this, they have come up with different explanations. That is what is Vedanta. So if you observe under Astika system, we have discussed 6 schools of thought, and in these 6 schools of thought, the first 4 they are purely scientific observations. They talk about the how the life has started on Earth. Are there different observations? Only fifth and sixth. In fifth also, you will not find anything perfectly about God, but they simply say that it is having faith in Vedas is what is required, or that is what is good. Like that, it is said in Purana also. But when it comes to Advaita, then you will find something, a discussion on God or Supreme Soul. Okay, so don't be under the wrong impression that these Indian philosophies or Darshana Shastras are something which are related to God, or something which is a theoretic subject, a theory which is to be discussed by only by senior citizens or old age people. No, it's all wrong. It is also like physics or chemistry or mathematics. They have come up with different theories, different observations. These are all scientific observations, right? So with this note, I'd like to move to the next topic, that is Nastika system. Under Nastika system, we will be discussing mainly 3 schools of thought: Buddhism, Jainism, and Charvaka. What is Nastika system? If you remember, I told you those who believe Vedas are those who believe the infallibility of Vedas, that is Astika. And those who don't believe that Vedas are correct, they are Nastikas. So nothing to do with God. People generally say that the equivalent word to Astika is theism and Nastika is atheism, but it is utterly wrong. Because theism means believing in God, atheism means not believing in God. But we never have that question here. We have only Astika and Nastika systems. Astika means believing in Vedas, Nastika is not believing in Vedas. but we are not talking about God. Bear it in mind, keep it in mind. So, under Nastika system, as I said, we can discuss Buddhism, Jainism, Charvaka philosophy, but this is not the exhaustive list or not complete list. There can be many other schools of thought ideologies, but we don't have proper literature uh, to discuss those ideas as schools of thought. And at the same time, those ideas are not very famous, are not followed by, are accepted by many people. This is one of the reasons that we don't have much literature to explain those things. So, what is Charvaka? What is Buddhist philosophy? What is Jain philosophy? Let us have a brief discussion. Charvaka is a person who tried to understand in the same way as Kapila Maharshi or Jaimini Maharshi or others like Patanjali have tried to understand the nature. He has also tried to understand the nature, but his understanding is different. As I said, it depends on individual persons and knowledge levels and belief systems. So he understood that in metaphysical world, whatever is visible, that is, whatever is tangible, is only real. All the intangible things are not real because they are intangible. We cannot touch them, we cannot feel them, we cannot see them. Okay, so he started believing that, his belief is that only those things which are tangible are in existence. So, which are not in existence, why should we discuss about them? Because they will not have any impact on us. Okay, so he said there is nothing like soul because you cannot feel your soul, you cannot touch it, you cannot see it. He was not even ready to accept something like space because you cannot see space, you cannot touch it, you cannot feel it. It's a concept, you have to understand it. So he was not ready to accept. His simple philosophy are to explain his ideas in a different way. I can simply say that he was not ready to accept anything like soul or supreme soul or God, and he was not ready to believe in facing the consequences of good or bad deeds, because there is nothing like good or bad. One can lead his life or live according to his own terms and conditions. There is nothing like good and bad. So he said, why should we bother about things like good or bad or punya or papa? If you want to lead your happy life happily, you should strive for it. Don't think about the ways. For example, if you when we discuss Buddhism or Jainism, they say aparigraha asteya. That means speaking truth or not speaking untruth is the right way, or not stealing from others, not begging. It's not begging, not stealing from others are the things. But he is not talking anything else. He is not saying anything about such things. He's simply saying if you want to enjoy, you can enjoy. Don't think what are the means, how you are getting money or how you are enjoying your life. Don't think about it because there is nothing like good or bad, nothing punya or papa. You need not reap any, say, face any consequences in your next birth, or whatever you are enjoying now. It's not because of your previous birth or good deeds or bad deeds of your previous birth. There is nothing like previous birth or next birth. So he simply said, there is a simple statement in Sanskrit. Ghritam, runam krutva ghritam pitva. Even by taking loan, you have to enjoy your worldly things. Don't bother how you are going to repay the loan because somebody has earned it. It may be his hard-earned money, but you are enjoying it. Enjoy it. That's all. Why do you think about his hardships or his earnings or other things? That's what is the philosophy. So he was not ready to believe in God, or he never believed in soul, and he never thought about good or bad. He was simply a person who wanted to enjoy his life. That is all. That is all Charvaka philosophy is. He never even talked about Vedas or anything. He was not ready to believe in Vedas also. Then comes Buddhist philosophy. Buddha, as you all know, he's a prince. His father was a king, and he, throughout his life, and said before he renounced the worldly things, he never seen outside world. He was born and grown up in his fort with all facilities, worldly facilities. One day after marriage and child, he wanted to see the real world. When he went out of his fort with the help of his charioteer or a driver, he has seen many things. He has seen an old age person he has seen a person who was sick. He has seen person as a people who are suffering, and he has seen a dead body. Then he understood that life is not that easy, not that simple. There is suffering in life. Then he left all the worldly things, his parents, his wife, his riches, all the things. Then he wanted to know the ultimate reality, ultimate truth. In his terms, what is ultimate reality? What is ultimate truth? So he tried in different ways. Ultimately, he meditated for some days in Gaya, that is present day Bihar, and that he understood uh, that there is suffering in life, and it is, I would say, inevitable. But there is a way to escape this suffering, overcome this suffering. And how? He has given eightfold path. That means he said, right understanding, right intent, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration are the 8 steps by following which one can attain moksha or mukti, or one can escape all these miseries, sorrows in life. So he has come up with his own idea. So he was also not ready to believe that Vedas have got all the knowledge. And he actually, this religion, I say Buddhist ideas as a religion, they have got famous only because of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. Why? Because those people who are unable to um, practice the rituals for any reason. Some of them were not rich, so they could not perform rituals because it takes huge amounts of money and cattle. If you have to perform a yajna or yaga, you have to give donations to Brahmins. You have to sacrifice your cattle. Okay, so a few people were not that rich; they could not perform yajna or yaga, and few others, because of their social status, they could not perform the yajna or yaga. So all those who were not in a position to perform the yajna or yaga, they felt that they used to feel that because we are not performing the yajna or yaga, we cannot we cannot know the ultimate reality or truth, or we cannot enjoy the eternal bliss, or we cannot uh, have the moksha, kaivalya. But when Gautama Buddha said, you need not perform any rituals, you need not to lead your life in accordance with Vedas, but still by following these 8 simple rules, that is right understanding, right intent, right speech, right action, etc., etc. So by following these 8 simple things, one can attain kaivalya or moksha or mukti. Then people readily accepted his idea and they converted, and so they changed their religion. That means they started believing in Buddhistic philosophy or idea. That is what is the gist of Buddhism is. Then comes Jain philosophy. Are you there, students? Are you listening?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So what was I talking about?
Yes, sir. About how people started following Buddhism.
Okay, and Buddhism comes under which system?
Nastika system.
I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so yeah, you can see my screen now. I hope. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Jain philosophy is, who is the proponent of Jainism? Who started or who spread these ideas? Jainism is the actually the Jain philosophy was established by Vardhamana Mahavira. But people say that it is Vardhamana Mahavira who started Jainism, but it is not 100% correct. Then what is correct? Jaina Vardhamana Mahavira is the 24th Tirthankara of Jainism. That means there are 23 Tirthankaras before Vardhamana Mahavira. But it is also correct to say that Vardhamana Mahavira is the person who started Jainism. How? Because these ideas were being disseminated or were being spread by 23 Tirthankaras before Vardhamana Mahavira, but they were never identified with this name Jainism. So people started identifying, or people started calling these ideas Jainism only from the time of Vardhamana Mahavira. That is why it is not wrong to say that Jainism is started by Vardhamana Mahavira. But actually, there were 23 Tirthankaras like Parshvanada, Vrishabhanada. We have 23 names. I don't remember all the 23, but Vardhamana Mahavira is the last 24th Tirthankara. So there are 23 Padmanabha, 23 Tirthankaras. They are also preaching the same. What is meant by Jain or Jina? A person who is following Jainism is known as Jina. Jina means Jainchinnatuvanti. So the person who has conquered. What or whom has he conquered? Conquering the outside world or enemies is not the thing which they are talking about. Conquering the enemies within, uh, which are within one's own body or oneself, conquering oneself, they are talking about. So, what is conquering oneself? That means controlling your feelings or ideas, controlling yourself. Why? Because to have samyak darshana, samyak jnana, samyak charitra, that means right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. To have these things, and so to do right things, to have right conduct, what you have to do? You have to win yourself. That means you have to control yourself. So a person who has full control over himself is known as Jaina. జయించినటువంటి వాడు, one who has conquered, right? So first of all you have to conquer yourself, then you will be under your control, full control. Then you will have the knowledge, you will come to know what the ultimate reality is or truth is. Okay, so again Vardhamana Mahavira has also said that you need not follow the Vedas, you need not live your life in accordance as it is said in Vedas, but still by following three simple rules one can attain mukti or moksha or kaivalya. So he has given three simple rules. The three simple rules are, as I said, samyak darshana, that is right faith; samyak jnana, that is right knowledge; samyak charitra, that is right conduct. So if you have right faith and right knowledge and right conduct, then you will become a Jina or Kevali. Jina is the person who has conquered, and Kevali, the person who has attained Kaivalya. Okay, so it is believed in Jainism that Kevalis are the only persons who can, who have, okay, who have understood the truth or reality, the ultimate truth or the ultimate reality, and they are known as Jains. This is what is Jain philosophy is. If you have observed all the three, that is Charvaka philosophy, Buddhism, Jainism, all the three, they are saying that you need not believe in Vedas. Oh, connection. 1 minute, please. Cross okay. So you need not believe in Vedas. That's what the gist of all these three philosophies is. That's why they are said to be Nastika system. They are considered under Nastika system. Am I right? Okay. So there is some of say some people, some intellectuals, some learned persons also say that there is another ideology or school of thought which can be considered under this Nastika system, and that is Indian political philosophy. So what is Indian political philosophy? Or is there any person who actually discussed this Indian political philosophy? Yes, there is a person. If you remember, there is a couple. I don't mean when I say couple, don't think that it is wife and husband. Uh, uh, if two persons are, if we talk about them as a, what should I say, in combination of the other, then we can say, then we can use the word couple. So the combination of a student and a teacher. Okay, these two are really famous. Can you guess who these two are? And say the uh, duo, that is student and teacher. Do you know any name, the student and teacher duo name? Famous student, famous teacher. For example, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is a famous teacher, and his famous student is Vivekananda. Students, are you there? Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you name any other famous student and teacher? There are many. For example, Shivaji and his guru Ramdas. Okay, Gandhi
Arjun.
and Gopalakrishna Gokhale, Alexander and his teacher Aristotle. In the same way, the first famous student and teacher, historic student and historic teacher are Chandragupta Maurya, the student and his teacher. Who is his teacher? Chanakya. Have you ever heard this name, Chanakya? Chanakya or Kautilya or Vishnugupta?
Yes, sir.
So, okay, instead of wasting time, I should explain the topic. Okay, so Chanakya is a famous teacher who actually was born in Magadha Empire, the present day Bihar, but because of some unfortunate things, he had to move from all the way from Magadha, that is from current day Bihar, to the present day Pakistan. To be more specific, the border areas of Pakistan and India. In those days, it was known as Takshashila, and there was a famous university wherein this boy has completed his education and joined the Takshashila University, Vishwavidyalaya, as a teacher. So nowadays we give them the nomenclature is something like assistant professor, associate professor, then professor, reader, then professor, like that. So in those days we don't know what the nomenclature was, but he was a teacher. He used to teach in Takshashila University, and this Takshashila University is in somewhere near India-Pakistan border. So he came to know that Alexander is planning to invade India. He has already conquered Persia. Persia is present-day Iran, Iraq. Persia was also a big empire, and Darius too was a famous king. So he has already defeated Darius II and conquered Persia. Now he is moving towards India. So he, uh, being a person from India, so he said he thought of uh, going to Magadha again back, because Magadha was a big empire and Magadha kings were very powerful kings. Even though there were small kingdoms in that area, in Punjab and Rajasthan areas, but they were not big kingdoms, and they were not having cavalry or other armies to fight Alexander. The only king who was having the might to fight with Alexander was Magadha king Dhanananda. So he went to Magadha again, all the way from Pakistan to Bihar. In those days, it may be this travel, people may think that it is very easy, but in those days it was not that easy. So, anyhow, he has taken all the hardships, and after facing all the hardships, he reached again Magadha, and he talked. He got interview with Dhanananda, and he talked to him. He explained him that Alexander is planning to conquer India. So he requests Dhanananda to wage a war against, protect his country, to fight against Alexander. But he says, I'm here in Bihar, and we are saying that he is planning to attack India. First of all, he has to conquer the small kingdoms like Ambhi and Purushottam's kingdom. All those kingdoms, then he will come to mind. Then if required, then I'll fight with him. Why should I unnecessarily go there and fight for others? So somehow they get answer. There is a difference of opinion. Then the Chanakya decides that he should get rid of such kings who cannot treat India as a single unit. So he chooses a boy who is Chandragupta Maurya, and he trains him, and he makes him king with his political ideology planning. Okay, so this guy Chandragupta Maurya is a student of Chanakya, and he became a king only because of Chanakya. So Chanakya is the kingmaker, and Chanakya not only a political scientist, he has also written a book by name Arthashastra, a very famous book. People generally think that they go by the name Ardhashastra, and they think that it is a book on economics or um, the finances, but it's not just on a book on just finances or economics. He has discussed, and Chanakya has discussed many things. Like he in public administration, how the taxation system should be, how the recruitment system should be, or what is penal code, what is civil code, many things he talked. He discussed law, he discussed political science, he discussed public administration, public finance, different things in Arthashastra. Okay, so he's not just a politician or a what should I say, a philosopher, but he was many things, many facets. So people consider his ideology in the form of Arthashastra as Indian philosophy, and they talk about this. Okay, so these things can be discussed in Nastika system. Now we know what is Indian philosophy and what are the different schools of thought under Indian philosophy. Now we have to discuss as to how the religion was or religious beliefs were in different periods of time. So this is again, uh, for example, reiterating and say redundancy. We have already discussed as to how the religious beliefs were in first unit and in second unit also. If you remember, I'll anyhow give you once again a recap, quickly discuss things. In ancient, yeah, I have to here I can discuss about a few minutes regarding the question paper, first internal question paper. The fourth and fifth questions, fifth and sixth questions, I remember that all of you have answered the fourth question very well properly. That is the characteristics of culture. But when it comes to fourth and fifth questions, when I asked you to write as to what is the ancient Indian culture in fifth question, and then when I asked you to write the Sanskrit language and the literature that is available in Sanskrit in sixth question, you people did not give me, nobody except one or two, nobody gave full answer. When I say ancient Indian culture, you have to discuss Harappa, Indus Valley civilization, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Then comes Vedic civilization. Then comes Buddhism, Jainism, all those things. All these civilizations are considered in ancient era only. Why? Because I told you till 8th century AD it is ancient era. From 8th century AD starts medieval era, and this continues till 18th century. From 18th century starts modern era. But all of you wrote or explained as to how the Harappan civilization was, Indus Valley civilization was, but you never bothered to discuss as to what is how the Vedic culture was. Okay, and you never talked about Buddhism and Jainism, or their culture, the culture of people in that time, right? So now we have to discuss ancient Indian religion, how the religious beliefs were. Can anyone tell me? Oh, sorry, I should not ask you questions. Asking you questions is waste of time. Okay, so I'll explain. In
People
Harappan,
used to pray.
pardon, you are not.
People
And
used
say
to
voice is
pray
not clear.
for
Please
the
be louder.
environment. Sir, Asian religion practices where people used to pray the environment, trees, airs, and etc. Sir.
Okay, very good. You remember well, but let me give you specific information. Like if we in ancient era, we have to discuss, as I said, about Harappan religious beliefs, I said that civilization and the religious beliefs of those people. Then Vedic, then Buddhism, Jainism. So in Harappa, we don't know much about their religious beliefs, but we have found two or three things basing on which we can guess as to what their religious beliefs were. We found a seal on which we see a person sitting in yogic posture surrounded by animals and having a crown with two horns. And scientists, social scientists have named it as Pashupatinath. We don't know whether they used to worship that god with that name or not, but it is just a guess. Why? Because we worship a god by name Pashupatinath. So scientists said it might be Pashupatinath. Then we have also got uh, a proof to say that they were worshipping people tree, right? And we have also found a great bath wherein it is believed that we don't know whether they really used it for recreation purpose or uh, just a minute, friends. Yeah, students. So, what was I discussing?
Ancient culture.
Yeah. So Harappan civilization, as I said, we have proofs to say that they were worshipping Pashupati, as we have found coins, and we can also see that they were worshipping people tree, and we have great bath. We don't know whether it was used for recreation or for just for enjoyment, or whether it was used from some religious purposes. But social scientists, they are guessing that it was used for religious purposes. So this was the religious belief, but we can say that their religious beliefs were limited to this extent only. That means doing some kind of rituals with water, by using water, and worshipping male and female god or goddesses. This is what we. When it comes to Vedic culture, which is much younger than Harappan civilization or Indus civilization, in Vedic culture, what we can know is, and said we can guess, or sorry, it's not guessing, but we have a clear idea as to what their religious beliefs were. how, how and why do we have clear idea about the Vedic culture and why not about the Indus Valley civilization? The only reason is we don't have any written proofs in case of Indus Valley civilization, whereas the written proofs, that is Vedas, are available in Vedic culture, because it is Sanskrit which is used by the people of Vedic culture, and all the Vedas, Upanishads, Aranyakas, Brahmanas, they are available in Sanskrit only. So if you read the Vedas, if you read the Upanishads, you will understand that they were having many religious beliefs, and their religious beliefs were related to, and say, were in the form of worshipping the forces of nature, like Agni, Varuna, Vayu, Indra. These are the things. You will not find any names like Brahma or Vishnu. It is only the names like Varuna, Vayu, that is the name, say, forces of nature. Okay, so people used to worship the forces of nature in the form of gods. Okay, that was the religious belief of Vedic culture, people of Vedic culture, right? Then, in Buddhism, you all know what happened in the answer in latter Vedic period, when people have come up with different ideas like Buddha, Vardhamana, Mahavira, Charvaka. We have discussed it now. So those were the religious beliefs of ancient era. Then what has happened in medieval era? The unique feature of medieval era is entry of Islam into India. Then there was an observable change. People have come to know a new religion. People started following Islam. Why the rulers were following Islam? So there was an observable change in religious beliefs, education, many other things. But here we are concerned with our discussion is related to the religious beliefs. So people started worshipping or practicing Islam. Okay, so this is how the religious ideas were. Now we have to discuss some religious reform movements in the modern era. But let me give you a glimpse of how the things were in medieval era. Medieval era, along with entry of Islam into India, many things have gone wrong. Those who were following uh, Sanatana Dharma with the name Hinduism, they were, and see, some of them, they don't know what Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma was, and some of them, even though they knew what it means, they have, for their selfish reasons, they have interpreted it in the wrong way, and they wanted to get some advantage. Okay, so for their own vicious or malicious intentions, they have interpreted wrong things, or in wrong way, the scriptures, sacred scriptures of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, and they got advantage, because of which some wrong practices have become part of Hinduism, like Sati Savgamana or untouchability. Okay, such things were there. So, to stop such things, or in order to let the people know as to what is right and what is wrong, people have come up with different ideas or different movements. So, in modern era, that is after 18th century, when Europeans entered India, you can see people trying to give the correct information to others are general public, and for that they have chosen different ways. For example, if you see Madan Mohan Malaviya, Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Gandhi, various other people, Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, different people have tried in their own ways, different ways. So we'll discuss few religious reform movements in modern India. Okay, so in my next class, we'll be discussing the religious reform movements in modern India, with which we'll complete the third unit. So students, it's not possible to take class now here. So let me take attendance and conclude the session. Rule number 61.